Preparing to live stream. And we are live. Good day, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's Folio Forum. My name is Peter Murray, and I'm the open source community advocate at Index Data and the host for today's event. Our topic today is an exploration of the Folio circulation rules. This session, like all Folio forums, is being recorded and will be posted to the Open Library Foundation YouTube channel. As we go along, please use the YouTube chat box to ask questions or make comments, but also note that we're going to have an extended question and answer period on Zoom on Monday. And so questions that get into an in-depth exploration of the circulation rules we might put off until that more interactive Zoom session on Monday. If you like to tweet, please use the Twitter hashtag FolioForum, and I'll pose those questions and comments to the panelists as well. We'll get started, I think, with Cheryl Malmborg. I practiced it.
Cheryl's fine. Malmborg.
Thank you.
Refer to the Swedes.
From the University of Chicago. And I'll stop sharing, and whenever you're ready, Cheryl.
Click share. Okay.
It's coming up. We see PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we see your slides.
Okay, good. So I'm going to give a very quick overview of what goes into circulation rules so that the people who can get on with their presentations of real life rules. Circulation rules are used by both loan and request transactions to determine what policies will be applied to a loan or a request. They consist of criteria and policies, and they are entered in the circulation rule editor. So criteria indicate what combination of patron and item characteristics the policies are going to be applied to. The criteria possibilities are patron groups, obviously referring to patrons, and then 3 characteristics of items: material type, loan type, and locations. Those are found in settings under different categories: user, obviously inventory for items, and then your locations are actually set in the tenant. So a quick view of the actual editor. There are codes and icons used to indicate those different criteria, and they're not, you don't have to memorize them because you will see an explanation of them when you start entering a rule. All your policies are going to be defined under circulation settings, and those are categorized, as you can see. So I'm not going to give much detail at all about these, but loan policies have to do with loan periods and other characteristics of a loan, including possible alternate loan periods, for instance, if an item is recalled. Overdue fines are pretty self-explanatory. Lost item fee policies come in if an item is lost, and you can set an interval so that it is automatically applied if an item is a certain amount of time overdue. Patron notices cover any notice related to the, any notice, sorry about that, any notice related to the loan itself. We've got the list there. It also includes any request-related notices, such as a notice that the book is ready for you at the hold shelf, and if any fees or fines are accrued. So those all exist in one policy. The request policies really just indicate what combination of the three possible request types are possible for that in that particular policy. So you can have hold, page, or recall. You can also have a policy which says none of those apply. So you can have 0 to 3 different request types in a policy. One thing to keep in mind when you set up your rules is that they're going to be accessed by requests, and a request is not necessarily, doesn't necessarily have a loan already associated with it. It might be a page, so that when you set up your criteria, you have to take into account if you want that rule to apply, for instance, for a book to be paged, even rather than being checked out or recalled. The circulation rules file has 2 lines that have to be there. The priority line, which is used to determine what rule to use if you happen to have created a rule line that has exactly the same criteria in it. There's a very good explanation of how this is used in the documentation that I'll give you the URL for in the end, and I suggest you read it. It's important, but it only comes into effect if you have written a rule that basically duplicate criteria rules. Your fallback policy is there in case you have not taken into account criteria that are presented to the rules engine. So if you miss a policy, you won't just get a mysterious error message. The fallback policy will be invoked. It's always the second line. It is the only line that does not have any criteria, just as fallback. And then you put in whatever policies you want. Here is an example of what the rules editor looks like when you begin entering a new line. When you enter a new line, you'll be prompted for the criteria. So as I said, you don't have to have memorized that A is institution and C is library, but you choose one or more, you choose the first criteria you want to enter, and then it will present you with a nice drop-down list of all the values you have entered for that criteria. This is a University of Chicago example. We have an extremely large number of different patron groups. Then you choose by clicking on one of those, the value you want. This is just another example of what you will see. For instance, if you want to enter S, which is the lowest level of location, it's actually, you need to click through indicating institution, campus, library, and then you will get a list of the locations that you can choose from. A quick note on combining criteria. Very often you will be using more than one criteria. You can combine them by using a plus sign. In this example, faculty patron types, patron groups, get one basic loan policy. But if they are actually trying to check out a DVD, they get a different policy, so that we have one overriding, one policy that applies to everything except the DVD. You can do the same thing by using indentation. So if, and it's purely a matter of choice, whatever is clearer to you. But using the indentation, you would have the first line, the general policy for faculty. Then you do not have to, you just indent. And that indent is the equivalent of faculty plus DVD. I will not try at this point. This is just a little excerpt from the University of Chicago rules. We're very loan type centric. And so for these two loan types, stacks and music, I've not entered any patron groups. There's a large number of patron groups that get the standard policies. Then we have exceptions. So I've indented by patron group for every exception we have. And it is possible when you do this indentation to add another criteria. So in this criteria, this is another university that we have a relationship to, and these two patron group, this patron group gets different rules depending on whether or not it's a science book, basically. So there is also two things to know here. There are criteria. You can use a keyword all in specifying a values for a criteria. Now, this is not required. For instance, if you wanted something to apply to all patron groups, you would not have to specify a patron group at all. But you might want to say patron group, G all, meaning that the rule applies to all patron groups. And that you might want to use if if you think the number of criteria may be used to disambiguate a rule. Number of criteria just means how many different criteria you have entered. And it can be used to determine which rule to use. The not symbol, exclamation point, indicates that the rule does not apply to the value that it precedes it. So that if you wanted a rule to apply to all your patron groups except faculty, you could write G exclamation point faculty, and that would exclude the patron group faculty. And you could do this more than once. You could say not faculty, not space, not trustee, so that your rule would not apply to those two special groups. Once you have entered all the criteria you're going to use, you enter a colon, and then the system will give you the list of possible circulation policies. The rules require that you enter something for each one of these policies, and only one policy for each type. So you do need to enter one loan policy, one request policy, etc. When you set up your policies, you may think you don't want to ever send overdue notices, or you don't want to send notices to this patron, you don't want to charge overdue fines. You still have to create a policy that basically says, no, do not send any of these, do not charge any fines, because you have to have a named policy so the system knows what to do. And just an example, if you choose the L for loan policy, you will get a list of all your loan policies and you choose. Then you'll choose the next policy you want to enter. You can enter them in any order you want. It doesn't matter, although I usually just enter them in the order they're on the list. Okay, I really rushed through this. Whoops, excuse me, what have I done? And there. I'm gonna have to the very end. Excuse me, I've never done this before. I think this will work. Yes. I won't try to make this pretty at this point. The documentation for the circulation rule engine is actually in GitHub. But no, don't worry, you're not going to have to read code. It is a nice text explanation. It goes into quite a lot of detail about how priorities are set, or how the priority values are used. And I do recommend that you look at it. And there is my name and my email address. I'm happy to get email or questions on Slack. And also, I realize I went through this very quickly. So if we have time in the end, I'm happy to answer any questions now. And I think then I will turn it over.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl.
Real world.
Yes. And I took the URL you mentioned here on your last slide, and I pasted that into the chat of the YouTube live stream, so people can get to that right away.
Okay.
That's a great overview of a real complex system that we have for loan rules. I keep calling them loan rules, circulation rules. They're bigger than loan rules.
Yes, the name changed when we started adding more policies, and especially when request policies came into effect, because it actually doesn't have to be a loan. So, okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
And, yep. And old habits die hard, I'm afraid.
Yes, I know.
I would want to introduce Lisa and Miriam right now. Lisa, until this week, was at Chalmers University. We congratulate her now in joining EBSCO as an implementation consultant. And we also welcome Miriam to a visible part of the project. And the two of them will talk about the experience of our longest running FOLIO implementation in the community, that of Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden. Lisa, I understand you're starting first.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Peter. So I will attempt to share my screen. Let's see.
Here it comes.
Here it comes. And here are the slides, right? Can you see the slides?
Yes, all set.
Excellent. Me and Miriam are going to talk about circulation rules and how we use them, how we think about them at Chalmers Library. And I will also talk some more about the implementation and how we migrated from the circulation rules that we had in Sierra from Innovative that we used before FOLIO. And just a few words about Chalmers Library. Chalmers is a Chalmers Library is an academic library at a university in the south of Sweden, and it has four libraries with about 50 employees. And here is to give you an idea of the amount of circulation that happens at Chalmers Library. So electronic material is really, really important to the Chalmers students and staff. And print materials, there's not as much, but what there is does circulate. So it's very important to handle that efficiently. So in 2019, Chalmers Library had about 22,000 loans. So to go into the whole philosophical thing of what do we need the circulation rules for? So it's basically so that we can decide who can borrow those materials that the library has to offer. It's how long those people can keep it. It's what happens if they keep it longer, if they want to keep it longer, if they don't return it when they should. It could also be what happens when several patrons want the same item. So that's where you get the request rules, probably. And also, you have to decide whether the same conditions are going to apply to all patrons and all items, or if it's going to be more complex than that. And we, of course, had rules for this set up in Sierra, our previous ILS. Here are some screen shots from the implementation process, where we had extracted our loan rules in Sierra to spreadsheets. And to make everything even more confusing, loan rule, the term loan rule in Sierra pretty much corresponds to the term loan policy in FOLIO. So here are the loan rules that we had in Sierra. I think we had about 70 of them. And a lot of them, for those who can't speak Swedish, they have a lot of those had the words "don't use" in the name, which basically meant that they were obsolete, but they were still in the system because you were not able to actually delete them, because that would have shifted the indexes or something, so it would have messed up current loans and other loan rules. So there was a lot of things there that we really didn't want to bring over to FOLIO. And so what I did was check how many of those existing loan rules were in use. And here is a screenshot of that. So we had a regular loan rule, which that was used by 4,000 loans, and then the second most common loan rule was used by 400 loans. And in the end, it turns out that there were only 18 loan rules that were actually used in current loans out of those 66. So we were able to just shave off a lot when migrating, and that made it a lot easier. And we were pretty strict as well about not bringing over anything that seemed to be out of use. And we also, since there are 2 or 4 branch libraries, we also talked to the different branch libraries about simplifying, so that it would be predictable both for patrons and for library staff, the loan rules that could apply to different patron and item combinations. And in FOLIO, so Cheryl mentioned that there are 4 different criteria that you can use in loan rules. Circulation rules. And at Chalmers, we actually decided to only use the criteria patron group and loan type. And we mapped loan type to what was called item type in Sierra. And we had a bit of a discussion about that at an early point, because we could have chosen to map that to material type, or to sort of map it to both or use both. But in the end, we map that to loan type, and we just have Chalmers only has one material type that is applied to everything. So different combinations of these two criteria decide which loan policy, request policy, and notice policy will be used for that loan. And there are also fee-fine policies and lost item policies, but that is, we don't actually charge fines, and nothing really happens when an item is declared lost. So we have those in our circulation rules because as Cheryl mentioned, every policy needs to be in the circulation rule. But this one basically says, the fee fine says that don't charge a fine. So, and here are just on the slide are just some other things that also affect the loan conditions. And now Mariam is going to actually demo a loan or try to borrow some books and see which rules are applied. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and yes, I can see Mariam's screen. And Mariam, you are muted.
Classical. Okay, so this is the checkout app in Folio, and I want to check something out to a patron. Sorry, there we go. So I'm looking for the patron, and the patron wants to have this book. And I get this message that it's not possible to loan this book. Here it says non-loanable policy. And I might wonder what that means. If I look at the book, I might see that it's the reference book, and I can choose to override it or close it. And the patron doesn't want to go home empty-handed. So she comes back with this book. And this is possible to loan. And here we see the name of the loan policy. And this is, as Lisa said, the absolute majority of our books have this loan policy of 14 days policy. So that means that if you check out a book that has a request already, you will get a due date 14 days from that day. And if there are no requests, you get 19 days. But if someone else would request the book during that time, you would get a notification to return the book earlier. And then you can also, if no one is requesting it, you can renew it twice. So that's how that policy looks like.
Yes.
And yes, and that's how it looks like in the settings. This is just some of the information of that. Is it loan policy? Yeah, loan policy. And that's where we can see what I just mentioned.
Yeah, and you can see here that this loan policy was last updated in August 2019. So that was just before Chalmers went live on Folio, and I think we haven't done much to the circulation rules since then. So it's not the kind of thing that you tinker with every day. So it's been a while since we set this up. And here's our actual circulation rules table, and it's basically, you can see that it's grouped by patron groups. So you have like a whole section that only has to do with the patron groups that are defined in this. On row 3, you have students, staff, public, and also younger patrons. And for all of those groups, these rules apply depending on the loan type. And then you have a different set of rules, or similar but different set of rules for the group ILL library. So this is how we have, or Chalmers has sort of conceptualized these rules here in the circulation rules editor. And I think it's a pretty good way of doing it. It's easy to get an overview of what applies in which cases. And I have to say, having worked with other ILSs and circulation rules in other ILSs, I find FOLIO quite easy to work with. And a former other systems librarian colleague was also very fond of the circulation rules editor, because you can see everything in one place. You can see the names of things. It's not full of mysterious codes and numbers. So I was very happy to work with that. And here are just some screenshots of our the different policies that we have in FOLIO, or that Chalmers has in FOLIO. And as you can see here, this, I'm not going to count them quickly, but this is much fewer loan policies than we had loan rules in Sierra. So we really succeeded in making that easier to understand for everyone, and also so much easier to manage. And most of that is because we were able to just not bring over the ones not in use. We also have pretty simple request policies and patron notice policies that unfortunately are not as intuitively named as the other policies. That's how it happened. But these are the ones that are important to Chalmers, and the fees, fines, lost item are not something Chalmers works with. And I should say that it is definitely possible to rename these policies. It's just that we haven't done it yet, or haven't decided on the best names. And there are also a couple of test policies, as you can see down here, because circulation rules are very complex, so you need to test it, and you need to test it without confusing your patrons. And speaking of confusing times, 2020 has been an interesting year, where we had to use at Chalmers, we had to use our circulation rules, not really to decide who gets to borrow a book, but on how long they keep it, but more like keep people from borrowing books at all, or if they already borrowed them, keep them from returning them, because the whole Chalmers campus was pretty much closed to visitors, or people were discouraged from visiting the campus between March and August. And of course, we didn't want to ask people to return their books during this time, or we didn't want them to come and borrow new books. So what we had to do instead was, or what we ended up doing was renewing our loans en masse, renew all loans at once. We did that a few times because we didn't know when we were opening. And that is something we did sort of, I'm not going to say in spite of the loan rules, but we sort of went against them, but we worked with them. So that was an incredibly interesting learning experience, because when you do something that is not expected, when you do something to the loans that you did not expect to do, then you really need to understand what the implications will be. So if we renew all of those loans, what will happen to the loan policy? What does the request policy say? What does the notice policy say? Will they get notified about these renewals? Will they still get those notifications that their loan was overdue? So that was a very interesting thing to get to deal with during our first year of using FOLIO. and it made us learn a lot about how circulation worked. And hopefully we can focus on other things, or Chalmers can focus on other things going forward. Because as I said, it's been a year since we defined the current loan rules, and when we did the migration, we didn't change anything really radically, except removing some loans that we weren't using. So what I was going to say is that hopefully it's time to think ahead. And Mariam, who is now a systems librarian at Chalmers, will talk a bit more about that.
Yes, so we've had this standard loan for a very long time. When I asked around, nobody remembers a time when we didn't have it. So it hasn't seemed to have been questioned for a long time, and we are questioning it now because it's very confusing to patrons, and yeah, so that does cause some problems. So what we have been talking about now is we have suggestion of having a loan period of 2 or 3 weeks, and with an automatic renewal. But that doesn't work in FOLIO, so we can't have that yet. Today we have been looking into trying to get that change sooner. And for now, we just have to make it as clear as possible in our notices that we send out and on the web page, and put up with answering questions on emails when they call in.
Yeah. And I think one thing that is also very interesting when you start changing things in the circulation rules, then you have to understand them even better and know what happens to existing loans if I change a rule, if I change a policy, if I add a policy. I wish I knew more about that, but that was the problem that the Chalmers really had with back with Sierra. First of all, that you were actually not able to delete the rules, but that I think in a lot of cases you're very insecure about what will happen, because it has so much impact on your library's operations and on your patrons and on your staff. So so that's why it's good to have those test loan policies and circulation rules. And I really look forward to seeing what the new systems librarians at Chalmers will do with the circulation rules, and if they can make them better. So, so do you have anything more that you want to say, Mariam?
No, I'm done.
No? Then we will go to the last slide, which has our email addresses and also a picture showing how much fun it is to work with setting up circulation in FOLIO, and also integrating it so that it works with your checkout machine. And that was it from Chalmers. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have next Brooks Travis from Missouri State University. I think Missouri State is, well, I know it's among our elder statesmen of FOLIO installations as well. Brooks, was it February or March that you implemented?
We went live in first part of June.
Oh, first part of June.
Yes.
Okay. It's been a heck of a year. Tell us about circulation rules at Missouri State.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. Similar to what Lisa was showing, this is kind of our matrix of locations, and locations on the left, patron types on the top, and then loan rules as they apply to the locations. All of our loan rules were based on location primarily, location in combination with patron type. And so one of the things we wanted to do when we moved to Folio was simplify this. As you can see, we had, keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, 192 locations. We really didn't want to replicate that because there's a lot of duplication or near duplication in these lines in the matrix. And so we wanted to kind of simplify that when we moved over to Folio. So what we settled on there was to translate locations into loan types, where Chalmers based theirs on they have one material type in their system now, and we wanted to bring down our number of loan types to make that a little bit simpler. We had this beautiful, simple system in place when we went to migrate, and it has kind of expanded as we've gotten past our initial implementation, as we've run into some edge cases around requests and things that we've had to work around. But I'm going to bring up our circulation rules editor real quick to kind of show what this looks like now. This might be a little small for folks, but like I said, we primarily have a loan type based, and we're using nested rules. But we do have group as our primary priority criteria because we use that to special case out some particular patron groups for standard behavior. Like we have a group for ILL, group for doing some demo stuff, a group for users that can always initiate recalls on items and things like that. But the we took our 192 locations and basically brought them down to 15 or so types. And then we nested group-based rules under there where they were varied from the standard. A lot of these, we had a need to kind of distinguish some of we have a K-12 school library as part of our system, and we needed to distinguish grade level students there in the user side. So we created groups for them. And when we did that, we had to go in and account for that in our circulation rules. So that's why a lot of this kind of balloons out. We also don't charge standard overdue fines. We do charge fines on recalled items, and we have lost item fees. But another thing we decided to do was simplify our undergraduate and graduate loan periods. We'd had kind of a variable loan period for graduate and undergraduate students of 4 weeks, 3 months, and 6 months, depending on what their patron type was. But we went to a fixed due date schedule for students that's based on terms. And so when you check an item out during a term or shortly before a term, it's due at the end of that term. And then if you check something out towards the end of the term, it's due at the end of the next term. We have one fixed due date schedule. Just to kind of give you an example here. We've got these start date for the schedule. It's checked out in between here and here, gets this due date. It's checked out between this date and this date, gets this due date, so on and so forth. One thing we also tried to do was to simplify the number of loan policies we had, which kind of, as Lisa mentioned, is equivalent to the loan rules in Sierra. We do have some that look have the same period, but have some unique characteristics based on which library they're in or what the material type they're dealing with is. But this is actually down quite a bit from our existing system in Sierra. Our view find policy, basically we have, again, recall finds only, just to kind of show an example here. We have $1 per day maximum recall. There's some things we were excited to do based on forthcoming changes here, but that's going to be a while out yet. So we are just working with what we have for the moment on those. Our notice policies, we had, again, some special case things with our K-12 library where, for the most part, they don't receive fee fine notices. Those are handled out of band by the library staff over there. But we do have some like checkout receipts and check-in receipts, things that do go out more or less, and then recall notices go out to everyone so that folks make sure they're getting those, since that's where the fees and fines come in. And our request policies, we have patron-initiated recalls for a lot of our general collection items through EBSCO Discovery, and that's been a change for us. That wasn't something we had and we're using in Sierra, but since we didn't have fees and fines, we wanted to make sure that if a person requested something, it was going to come back. And that, since we have the recall fines, that's where that came into play. Going back to our circulation rules editor, we sorry. Actually, I don't have much else here. We got into the, it's not as, again, our goal was to simplify things from what we had. And where we've gotten more complex, it's been an offshoot of things that don't have, for the most part, don't have to do with the loan rule system in particular. And our goal of going forward is, again, to, as we can, to simplify these things again, getting back to as minimal a system as we can. And the big win for us was having the loan types, which was not something, kind of a tool we had in the toolbox in our previous system. I'm happy to take questions about these things. I could go through details on our fixed due date schedules or our loan policies and talk about particulars there, but I think that as far as just general purpose information goes, that's all I've got.
That's great. Did you have a process that you went through for simplifying the loan rules before migration?
We had kind of an interactive version of that matrix that I showed from Excel that was web-based that we could filter on, and kind of it would highlight places where there were significant overlap in what rules applied. And we sat down with our various stakeholders in the various collection areas of and the different libraries and said, okay, we've got these, 4 loan rules that in Sierra have nearly identical terms, but there's a couple pieces that are different. Can we consolidate those? Can we as a collectively come together and say, hey, this thing that is different about this one loan rule, we don't have to have that anymore. We can simplify. We can basically just create one loan policy in FOLIO to handle that case. And that's what we tried to do. And like I said, we were able to fairly significantly decrease the number of loan policies we had. I'd say by about half, I think.
If I can jump in and say something about the Chalmers migration as well, we also went through the item types in Sierra and the patron groups, which are now at the base of the folio loan policies, and looked again at which were not used and which were too similar, and then sort of like baked them into a fewer set of item types and patron groups already in Sierra, because that was the software we were familiar with, and we knew how to do like batch updates and things in Sierra. So we did a lot of cleaning before the migration as well.
That sounds a helpful tip. Always do those kinds of cleanups in a system you're very familiar with before migrating to a new system. That does sound intriguing. I was also intrigued with the Chalmers taking the loans that were in the system and sorting them by the rule that was used to find out which rules were most popular, I guess, and which ones had not been used. And that struck me as a good way to start trimming your loan rules as well.
Yeah, I thought that was very efficient and valuable, because then you can really show your colleagues, because when we did the migration, I was a systems librarian, but I hadn't been working at Chalmers for that long, so I did not have that 10-year history of, and as Miriam said, we don't really know why the rules that we have, why we have them, because you don't have that history. So when you see 70 rules and you realize that 18 are in use, you don't know if the others are, why they are there, if they are supposed to be used, or if they are just obsolete. And looking at how many were actually in use in current loans was such a good way of sort of visualizing and being able to say to your colleagues that this is the ones that we are actually using. Are you missing anyone? There were a few ones that had barely any loans that we knew were actually in use. But apart from that, I thought it was very, very efficient, and also very good to just have it on paper, the numbers, see that this is what's happening. It's not that I think this, I know it's happening.
Yeah, we did the same thing here. Mark Arnold, one of our systems folks, he built a lot, did a lot of querying and built a lot of tools to parse the print-based output for a lot of this stuff from Sierra to really make that analysis a lot easier and a lot more visual for folks. So that was, I think that was a big deal. Being able to visualize the overlap really helped sell the push to standardize some of the loan policies.
Great. In a moment, I'm going to put Molly and Cheryl back on the spot. Molly's been listening in on the webinar so far. And Cheryl, any observations from your perspective on the circulation rules at Chalmers and at Missouri?
I was very interested in the analysis they did to determine how they were going to write their rules. And I think that's an excellent idea to examine before you start writing the rules, basically what your goals are. And if you can do anything to simplify that makes sense for your system, it's definitely a good idea to do that analysis. And you know, you sort of have to know what your policies are going to be, and then you have to look at it from the folio perspective and, you know, write your specific policies before you even look at putting them all together. It can take a while, but it's worthwhile. We actually didn't do much of that at Chicago because we had done it a few years ago, going from Horizon to Olay. So we, in some sense, had to step up. Olay is also, in many ways, more transparent in terms of writing your rules than the sort of matrices that you had to extract. But yeah, I think they both, Brooks and Chalmers, had very good explanations of how to begin looking at the process.
And now, one thing we didn't touch on, Cheryl, you didn't mention it in the introduction, and it kind of caught us up and it made things kind of interesting on our side, was the calendar aspect of all of this.
Oh, yeah, that the rules interact with other aspects of the system, and a major one for any sort of circulation is setting up your calendar for each service point. And you obviously need to know your open hours, your closed hours, but that's a whole new topic.
And maybe one we can get into on Monday when we have the more extended question and answer period.
Yes.
Any final thoughts?
I think I just wanted to, number one, thank everyone today for presenting. This was fantastic. I work with the FOLIO implementation team at EBSCO and joined the team back in July. So I just missed the Missouri State migration and I was nearly a year late on Chalmers. But I think that what I really like that you all encompassed was the migration to FOLIO as an opportunity to kind of turn your traditional thinking on its head. And I think that that's something that philosophically, not just in terms of circulation rules, but in terms of everything with FOLIO, it's a really great opportunity. And, when we're talking to sites that are adopting FOLIO, we talk about that simplification, but you also kind of need to step outside of the box and see the new attributes and the new policies that are available that really lend FOLIO its flexibility. And there is still a lot of room for growth. There's obviously still a lot of development happening, but I think a big portion of it is examining what has existed for you in your current system for years and sometimes decades, but then not only analyzing that as it stands now, but doing that translation. Maybe it's non-item type to material type, maybe it is item type to loan type, and kind of really digging into that philosophically and engaging stakeholders from across the aisle. Rules, because of the pillars they're built on, you might need some buy-in from your cataloging and metadata crew in terms of material types and things like that. So I think that this is just a really great topic to touch on the collaboration inherent in a migration in general, but especially in a migration to FOLIO. So I learned a ton today. I'm really excited that you were all able to present, and I look forward to questions from others.
Yeah.
I don't know how others feel. I would be happy to get any written questions before the 7th. If you have anything that's, you might want an answer to, if we get some questions in advance, I could, be able to prepare a little, get some screenshots, do something like that, prepare a coherent answer.
Absolutely,
Great.
Cheryl. And I think my email was in the FOLIO forum information for people to submit ahead of time. And I've already received quite a few. So I will make sure to forward them to this entire group so that everyone has time to mentally prepare and prepare any presentation that you might want as part of your answers.
Great. And I put up on the screen here, you can get back to the announcement of the FOLIO forum. And on that is a link to the Zoom session on Monday, 8 o'clock Eastern US time. It uses the standard typical Zoom password. And if you don't know that, ask any one of the people here or anyone involved in a Folio SIG special interest group, and they'll be able to get that to you. So this concludes today's Folio Forum that explored the Folio circulation rules. You can continue the conversation on this URL on the Folio discussion website, on Twitter using the hashtag Folio Forum, and certainly again on Monday with the extended question and answer period. The recording of today's forum will be posted to the Open Library Foundation YouTube channel. If you're not already subscribed to that YouTube channel, you can find it by searching for Open Library Foundation. If you have feedback on this forum or have an idea for a future forum, please contact the forum facilitators at the email address facilitators@olaylists.openlibraryfoundation.org. Thank you to Cheryl, Lisa, Miriam, Brooks, and Molly for sharing their expertise today, and for everyone who joined us on the live stream. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.